There is a lot that has happened since my last episode, and there's a lot that I have to talk about, and almost none of it is positive. First of all, that was a catch. Second of all, Pegula and Beane are incompetent. Third of all, Patriots and Diggs are in the Super Bowl. Fourth of all, they made the most uninspiring, weakest coaching hire of all time. This is basically just going to be a full-on rant of an episode. Let's just go to the intro. Welcome to the City of Good Sports. I'm your host, Richard Miller. So I guess I'll start off my episode by talking about the Broncos game, since I technically haven't on this channel yet. And it was flat out abysmal. Going into this game, I was already pissed because I had to work, but I made sure to set my break to 7 to 7:30 so I could catch what I thought would be the end of it. So I was working through the first half, and every time I seemed to look and check on the game on my phone, I saw them turning the ball over, fumble after fumble. They could not hold on to the ball to save their lives. I'll just give a recap of what happened in the first half. They allowed 2 touchdowns. They scored 1, as well as a field goal for Matt Prater. The 2 touchdowns were to offensive lineman Frank Crum. So if you had that on your parlay, you're probably a millionaire by now. And the other one came on a dot to Lil Jordan. Yes, that's his government name. Lil Jordan Humphrey, where Darnell Savage got burned poorly. This is one of the worst football players I've ever seen on the field. Don't bring him back next year. He has one of the craziest low light reels out of any player in NFL history, both on the Packers and on the Bills. And the one play we had to count on him, he got burned. So don't bring him back. But the real low light of this first half was towards the end, in the final minute, where Josh Allen tried to be Superman. He fumbled the ball and allowed to get... I'm speaking too fast. He fumbled the ball and allowed the Broncos to get a field goal before halftime and take the lead 20-10 going into halftime. Now, immediately in the second half, guess what happens? Another fumble. Another fumble. And when I say this fumble happened immediately into the second half, I mean immediately. 42 seconds in. The fumble in the first half happened with 16 minutes left in the half. So in the span of under 1 minute of game time, Josh Allen fumbled twice. Both of these fumbles were forced by Nick Bonito, who's excellent player, demon of a player. And luckily for us, the defense holds up. We hold them to a field goal. So now the score is 23-10. The next drive, they are able to get a touchdown. Keon Coleman, and he redeems himself from the third worst low light of the first half, which I didn't even talk about. Keon Coleman dropped a pass in the end zone. Luckily for him, that was called a penalty anyway, so I wouldn't have even counted if he did catch it. But this has just been an embarrassment ritual of a season for Keon Coleman. So yeah, I was happy to see him score a touchdown. I'm happy for his development as a whole because it's good for us. And this hot stretch for the Bills continues as Deion Walker intercepts Bo Nix at their side of the field, their 40, aka we have 40 yards until the end zone. And immediately, I believe 2 plays after, Josh Allen, interception to PJ Locke. He's going for the deep ball into double coverage. And at this point, I'm really starting to get pissed at Josh. This is our 4th turnover of the game. This is Josh's 3rd turnover of the game. But we're still in the game nonetheless. So fast forward to the 4th quarter. It's still 23-17. Bills have the ball now. And now I'm officially on break so I can engage in the game fully. And luckily for me at the time, this was probably the most exciting sequence of plays we saw from Buffalo all day. There was a 50-yard classic Shakir or Yakir, just open field, huge gain. There was a spin move in there. I believe it was around 46 yards. And then a touchdown, around a 20-yard touchdown to Dalton Kincaid. This was electric, and it gave us the lead, 24-23. And next sequence, they immediately hold the Broncos to the 3-and-out, and I'm overjoyed at this point because the next drive starts out great. They keep moving the chains. They call a design run for Josh Allen on 3rd and 5, which normally I would be against, but the blocking scheme and the way it was executed was so perfect, it allowed us to get a first down. 2 plays later, it's 3rd and 8. Joe Brady calls a Joe Brady special, a receiver screen to Khalil Shakir on 3rd and 8. To his credit, Khalil Shakir actually takes the ball to the end zone. Unfortunately, though, it was thrown at his feet. It was a drop. They end up settling for the field goal. Next possession, Dane Jackson gets subbed in. Immediately gets burned. And this is an internal hire. The Bills love bringing back guys. They love these internal hires. Well, it didn't work. I don't want to see Dane Jackson in a Bills uniform again. He had one play and he blew it. Broncos take the lead 30-27. Bills kick a field goal successfully to send it into overtime. And we all know what happens in overtime at this point. Brandon Cooks, a successful catch where he was down, ripped out of his hands, and ruled an interception, followed by pass interference calls on Taron Johnson and Trey White, which ultimately won the Broncos the game. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for depressing Bills losses. I was at work, probably 50 people showed up and bought alcohol after that. That was egregious. It was terrible. It was the worst call I've maybe ever seen, only rivaling the pass interference no call in the Saints-Rams NFC Championship. It was terrible. And as a Bills fan, how do you even have the strength to put up with all this? But wait, it gets worse. It gets worse. Now, we all know that some change was needed after this loss. Most notably, they need a wide receiver one. But there was also questions about the coaching, the GM, the organization as a whole. And rather than it being a package deal, the blame was placed solely on Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott was fired and relieved from his duties as the Buffalo Bills head coach. And here's where it really starts to get bad. Brandon Beane is in turn promoted. Why? Brandon Beane is not only retained, but he is promoted to a higher position of president of football operations, where if anyone should have been fired, it should have been him. It should have at the very least been a package deal. Over the past few years, Brandon Beane has struggled drafting. He struggled to build a competent roster around Josh Allen, and he went into the year without a receiver one. I mentioned the call onto WGR, where he quite literally told them to stop bitching about receivers. Now, he holds a press conference with Terry Pegula, where Terry Pegula trashes Keon Coleman publicly and says, well, that was McDermott's idea to draft him, not Beane. Mind you, Keon Coleman is still on the team. He's 22 years old, and he had a touchdown in the Broncos game. So for you to publicly trash your player like that, you really make an ass out of yourself, and it makes an ass out of Beane. Not to mention, there are several videos around the draft cycle of Beane publicly praising Keon Coleman and saying that he's the guy. So even if that was McDermott's decision, which I think it was a group effort, I think they unilaterally decided on Keon Coleman. But to take the praise publicly of this being your draft move, and then as soon as things go left, to trash him publicly, I get it wasn't you, it was Pegula, but to even let him say that and in a sense be complicit, it really reflects on his character. And I'm not even going to get into Terry Pegula, because Terry Pegula is about as incompetent and out of touch as someone could possibly be. This is a billionaire who knows nothing about football. He's already ruined the Sabres, and now that the Sabres are starting to get good again, he's trying to ruin the Bills. He's trying to ruin the Bills. And I would have been okay with the Sean McDermott firing because there's certain things about Sean McDermott that I don't quite like. Obviously, he hasn't gotten over the hump. His clock management could be better, but he's an incredible motivator, and he's resonated with all of the players on this team. There are players on this roster, and pretty much all of them universally loved Sean McDermott. You saw how emotional Deion Dawkins was over the firing. You didn't even tell anyone. You didn't tell Josh Allen about the firing, but now you want Josh Allen to be an active part of the head coaching search. It's ridiculous. It's insane. So now the head coach, I was excited about it. I was really talking myself into it. Despite Pegula and Beane making an ass of themselves, I was like, okay, there's Clint Kubiak, there's Udinski. There were long shots. I didn't think they would take Brian Flores, but I would have liked Brian Flores or a defensive coach of that nature, maybe a Mike Tomlin. There are several players. Davis Webb, Nate Shieldhouse, I believe that's his name, the Rams passing game coordinator. There were a lot of coaching candidates that I was convincing myself into, but I kept hearing the names Brady and Dable. Once again, internal hires, and guess what they do? They hire Joe Brady as the head coach. Joe Brady runs a bona fide college football playbook. Now, Joe Brady has the accolades on paper to say, hey, James Cook was the rushing leader and Josh Allen was the MVP under my tutelage. But as much blame to fire Sean McDermott and promote Joe Brady, it once again is uninspiring and flat out lazy. It's lazy, that's what it is. Now, am I excited to see another full year of Joe Brady as the main play caller as well as the main head coach and motivator? Absolutely not. Do I think this move is salvageable? Maybe. I'm not excited to see the wide receiver screens on 3rd and 8. I do think Joe Brady's playbook waters down Josh Allen a little bit. It doesn't let Josh be Josh. But as we've seen sometimes when Josh is Josh, you get 4 turnovers in a game. So there is a certain level of optimism I'm keeping because I will give credit to Joe Brady for the accolades that he's accomplished. But I think there needs to be a little bit of a personnel shift. They absolutely need to either draft, trade for, or sign a wide receiver in this draft. They need to address the situation with Keon Coleman because they slandered him pretty publicly. They tore his name to shreds. He's likely getting traded, maybe released, but there's a part of you that still hopes for his development. I still think him not making practices at times, his lack of work effort, his lack of separation, these are all things that you have to really consider. Not to mention, he's coming off of one of the most publicly scrutinized seasons I've seen from any receiver in recent memory. And I don't think Joe Brady's playbook is very Keon Coleman centric. I don't think he's ever really a focal point in this offense, but why would he be at this point? But there is still room for development. Going into the draft, I really do like Casey Concepcion. A lot of people compare him to Khalil Shakir because he's a small receiver who just doesn't go down. He has versatility with his routes. I think he's a little bit better of a route runner than Shakir, honestly. But there's no reason why they can't play together. You're sacrificing blocking, but you have the option of having 2 dynamic playmakers and 2 people with great yards after catch ability, which with Joe Brady's play calling, the amount of times he likes to call screens, I think that's a good pick for them. Denzel Boston, on the other hand, does remind me a lot of Keon Coleman because he is that big contested catch receiver. A lot of rumblings are about Justin Jefferson. That's a pipe dream at this point. But if he could do it, he could bring in his guy from LSU, then I will take back everything I said about this hiring. Now let's talk about staff. The defensive coordinator is likely to be Jim Leonard, the former Broncos defensive pass game coordinator. And I love this hiring. If he could help bring the intensity of that Broncos defense to Buffalo, I am all for it. Again, I don't know that we had the personnel. Certainly to have the pass rush that Denver did, but I think he's definitely going to do wonders on our secondary. Like I said, our secondary is one of the brightest spots in this entire roster. Besides the backups, obviously Savage and Dane Jackson and all those guys, get them out of here. But Benford, Bishop, and Hairston, obviously, our first round pick. Will they bring Taron Johnson back? I'm not sure. I've seen a lot of people saying they might move Taron Johnson and Dawson Knox to be more cost efficient, which would hurt because those have been guys that are with us for a while. But I really did just want a little bit of an overhaul with the roster as a whole. And I don't know that I necessarily expect that because they're just addicted to bringing in guys that already know the system. Internal hirings. It seems to be the word of the day, internal hirings. Or it would be someone that is an aging veteran. I could see them getting Khalil Mack. I could see them getting Keenan Allen. People have said that as a joke. I think those are very realistic hirings. The OC is still not decided at this point. We're left to assume that Joe Brady is going to be the primary play caller on offense. It would be nice to get Davis Webb. I think Ronald Curry is likely to be promoted. That's honestly my guess. It's not exciting, but you have to remember we do have Josh Allen. As negative as I've been, there is still certain things to be optimistic about, but it just feels like we're accepting mediocrity. We're accepting these playoff exits. And when you see that Drake May was able to make a Super Bowl while only throwing for 87 yards, you really start to question our team building. Because had the Patriots built that good of a team and had that much of an overhaul in 1 year, that they are able to make this Super Bowl after going, 4-13 last year? It's unbelievable. Because I know Josh Allen's better than Drake May. Don't even start that. It's just depressing. It's just depressing because this was really our year. And you say this is always our year. Oh, there's always next year. I don't know if we'll have a year at this point. I don't know. But we'll be in the picture. You have to accept the fact that we probably will be in the picture. We might have a depressing playoff exit per usual, but we'll still be in the picture. So now we have to shift our focus knowing that we may have blundered the head coaching situation. Yeah, we got rid of our longtime guy who is the most successful coach in our history besides Mark Lely, but he broke the drought. He's been in the playoffs every year except one. You basically promote this OC who's not even that promising. He's not someone that was really getting many head coaching looks elsewhere besides maybe a couple interviews with the Raiders. It's not promising. It's uninspiring. And I'm tired of trying to hype stuff up when I know they've accepted this culture of mediocrity, and that's really what it feels like, and it really feels like Beane is the problem. Now, knowing Beane, how he drafts, he's going to get an undersized linebacker who's good in coverage but can't defend against the run. He's going to get an edge rusher who creates no pressure on quarterbacks. He's going to get a receiver who can't create separation because he has a track record of doing it. Brandon Beane lucks out with some of his picks. The luckiest thing that happened to Brandon Beane was him drafting Josh Allen. But he has more whiffs than he has hits. Let's be honest. I'm counting Keon Coleman as him. Kyer Elam is him. Boogie Basham is him. At some point, he has to take accountability for the fact that he's not a great drafter. And as far as offseason moves go, he's not great at that either. When's the last Bills offseason move? Besides Diggs, that was the last big one. Which, let's get into Stephon Diggs. They moved the arraignment for Stephon Diggs, a strangulation charge, to after the Super Bowl, and now the Patriots get to go in the Super Bowl. How unfair is that? Like, everything about this NFL season and how it's played out has been so ridiculous. And the Seahawks, I'm rooting heavily for the Seahawks, but you saw Clint Kubiak's play calling. You saw how he was able to activate Sam Darnold. Why would you not at least wait to interview this guy? There was a viral clip of him calling RB Scissors with JSN lined up, and it was just executed perfectly. He has such a creative offensive mind, and if Joe Brady could even tap into like 75% of that, then I'll start to convince myself into Joe Brady as a head coach. I think that Joe Brady gets compared to these guys because he has a quote unquote West Coast offense, even though there's a lot more play action, a lot more RPOs, a lot more screens. Um, but he's not on the level. Like, I saw someone compare him to Shanahan. They said the Falcons got rid of Shanahan in favor of Dan Quinn. This is like the reverse of that. Let's not compare Joe Brady to Shanahan quite yet. We still have to see him as a head coach. Mind you, he got hired and pretty much the entire reaction has been negative because we don't buy into it because we've seen him play. All these statistics and accolades look good on paper, but we've actually seen Joe Brady's play calling in action because he has been the offensive coordinator for us. So it's hard to get super hyped up about it. So for all the BS that us Bills fans have had to go through in the past week, whether it be the Cook catch/interception, the overall loss to the Broncos, the McDermott firing, the Beane promotion, the press conference with Pegula and Beane, the amount of years we're going to have to put up with Terry Pegula. I think I've seen enough of him in the public eye. I would like him to go back to just being the rich billionaire that doesn't talk. The amount of bubble screens we're going to have to endure this next season. The Joe Brady hiring, did I even say that? There's been a lot, but if there's one thing I know about Bills Mafia is that they have relentless optimism in the face of just depressing circumstances. So as rocky as this offseason started, there's still room for hope because guess what? Free agency hasn't started. The draft hasn't started. I don't know how many people are going to really watch the Super Bowl. I'll probably watch it. I'll be rooting for the Seahawks. I'll probably watch Bad Bunny's halftime show. But you just know that we should have been there. And you saw how close we were. What makes you think that this was our only year? I get that this was when the Chiefs were out. I get that this was when the Ravens were out. But this is a team sport. We have to build our team better. So if we could get personnel player-wise a little bit of an overhaul, that's where my optimism will come from. And I'm sure that we'll be very frustrated throughout the season, but we're frustrated every season. And we'll still be in the playoff picture. At least I would hope so. If we're not at least in the hunt, in the playoff picture, in the general stratosphere of where we have been in the past 5 years or so, then he really needs to be let go, as well as Beane. But I do expect us to get back to at least where we were. At the most, I'm hoping that this is a lateral move and not a collateral move. Through everything, like the rest of Western New York, I'm still a Bills fan. So be good, do good, God bless, go Bills, and I'll see you on next week's episode of the City of Good Sports. I'm Richard Miller.